Hey everyone, today I'm going to be trying to recreate the recipe Sockie tried, and it is donuts. There are only a few ingredients needed for this recipe, and it seems like it's quite easy to follow along, so I can't wait to try it out to see how it tastes at the end. So I have all the ingredients already placed down, so I'll be using some plain all-purpose flour, and I'll be using 1 cup of that, and then we also have some milk, and we need 160 mils. As for the butter, we need 125 grams of unsalted butter, and I'll make sure it's melted before I add it into the recipe itself. And as for the baking powder, we only need a small amount, a tablespoon, and as for the sugar, it needs to be super fine caster sugar, and that's 75 grams. And finally, the last item we need is 1 egg. And here's everything I'll be using in order to make the recipe itself. So first off, Sockie did use a cupcake tray, so that's what I'll be using as well. But if you have something to shape them more as donuts, I would recommend using that instead. And then I have measuring spoons and measuring cups in order to measure everything out properly. And then I have a sift, so I'm able to sift the flour. And then I have a mixing bowl here, so I'm able to add all of the ingredients together. And finally, something to mix everything with, and I'll be using a wooden spoon. Before we start making the donuts, let's go ahead and preheat the oven. So I'll be preheating the oven to 180 degrees Celsius, and that's also known as 356 degrees Fahrenheit. And the next step is to spray the cupcake tray with cooking oil. So now that we preheated the oven and added oil to the cupcake tray, it's now time to make the actual donuts. So the first step is to measure out the flour, so I'm going to open up the container and make sure I have the right amount so I can add it to the mixing bowl. So I'm going to be using 1 cup of the plain flour, so I just need to make sure it is completely even so it measures right. And just before I add the flour straight into the mixing bowl, I'm going to be sifting it first, and this just makes it a lot easier to mix all of the ingredients together. So now that we've sifted the flour, the next step is to add in the baking powder, and I'll be adding in a teaspoon. And the next ingredient we'll be adding in is sugar. I've just gone ahead and measured out the butter, and I'm going to be adding it to the microwave, so I've added it to a microwave safe bowl so it melts a bit so we can add it into the recipe itself. The butter has now been all melted, and you can see it looks so different from what it looked like before I added it to the microwave, so now I'm going to add it in with the rest of the ingredients. Now we're going to be adding in an egg to the recipe, and I'm going to try and crack it with 1 hand. And the final ingredient we need is milk. So let's go ahead and mix all of the ingredients together. So here we have the cupcake tray, and we've already added the cooking oil spray on it so it doesn't stick, so you don't have to worry about that. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill up each compartment. I won't be filling it up too much, maybe around halfway, so I'm able to make as many donuts as possible. So since we've added the mixture to the cupcake tray, I'm going to be adding it into the oven now, and I'll be leaving it in there for around 12 minutes or until they're golden brown. It has been around 12 minutes. They look so delicious, and I can't wait to try them too. So the next step is to cover the donuts with some cinnamon sugar. So I already had a container that was called cinnamon sugar, and it had both of them combined already, but if you don't have that, you can mix the cinnamon and sugar together and you can make it yourself. And what I'm doing right now is I'm making sure I'm covering the sides, the front, and the back so the donut is completely covered. And I'm just going to repeat the process until all the donuts are covered with the cinnamon sugar. So all I need to do is add cinnamon sugar to the final donut and I'll be completely finished with the entire recipe. And here we have the completed donuts. Of course, I did bake them in cupcake trays, so they look more like cupcakes than they do donuts, but I can't wait to try them. They smell so good and they look really delicious as well. It hardly took any time to make the donuts itself. The recipe was very easy to follow along, and it was really great how you only needed a few ingredients in order to make the dessert. So now it is time for the taste test, and I'm going to be trying one of the donuts. And I'll just be grabbing this donut over here as it's towards the side, and it tastes so good. It actually tastes like a donut, which I'm so surprised about, and I would definitely make this recipe again. And what I really like about the recipe is that you have the donuts itself, but then you can add toppings on top of it like sprinkles or icing. But even without icing or sprinkles, the cinnamon sugar tastes so good with the donuts. I would definitely give this recipe a thumbs up, and I would make this dessert again. Be sure to let me know in the comment section down below if you've tried to recreate it and how it turned out. So I hope you found this recipe video helpful. Thanks for watching!